Here we are. This is the last lecture on the bonus unit or section of this unit on relationships. And we're going to talk about relational dialectics, which is about moving in between extremes. So let's dive right in. So dialectic, right? Dialectics, if you look at the definitions, some of it has to do with argument and reason and so forth. But the idea of something as dialectic is about things that are diametrically opposed to each other. So somebody has a flag there, and then somebody at the other extreme, right? And so there is this space in between. And so dialectics is the idea that you have something on one end, that's that light blue flag, something on the other end, the light orange flag. By the way, blue and orange are opposites on the color wheel, right? And in between there is a continuum in between. And so we're going to talk about a series of dialectics, about things where you may be more the blue flag, more the orange flag, right? But it's not that you're necessarily the blue flag or the orange. You're more here or here or here or here or here, right? That you're different places on that continuum. And in fact, you're different places on that continuum, pulled between these two poles. You're pulled between two competing needs. We're going to talk about those needs in a moment. Two competing needs, you're pulled between them. And we're going to vary in where we want to be. And that variance is by person. Some of us naturally want to be more toward the blue, more toward the orange, and we'll talk about what those flags represent in a moment. Some of us just naturally want to be more, want in relationships more of one thing than another thing. Just by person we do. But also within our relationships, even a relationship, if you really like one thing, you will like, or you have a certain need, but then periodically you'll find you have another need. Not all the time, but you really like this one thing, except for every once again you don't. Excuse me. If you think of it sort of like, what you like having as your as a snack, we'll say, right? If you're the sort of person who likes having sort of a sweet snack in the afternoon, I'm a fan of sweets, unfortunately. You like having sweets, all right? You like having sweets, but then every once again you like something really nice and sort of savory, more salty. Every once again you like it, right? In relationships, we have needs. There are certain things that we want. And then every once again, I want the thing that's different from that. And it varies by the person, varies by the relationship we're in, but varies a lot by the moment in the relationship. So that might be sort of abstract, but let me talk about the actual dialectics that we have to look at. The first set of relational dialectics has to do with romantic relationships. And this is Leslie Baxter, who has a phenomenal theory here about dynamics of relationships. And so she's identified relational dialectics, or excuse me, romantic dialectics of relationships. And the first one she identifies is autonomy and connection, right? So that's, remember we had that blue and that orange flag, or the blue and the orange flag. So autonomy would be, say, the blue flag, and connection, that orange flag. So people are pulled between the need to have autonomy, to be free to do whatever they want, and the need to be connected to another person, which is the antonym, is the opposite of being free to do whatever you want, is being connected to somebody. Like, think of like a three-legged race, right? Do you want to run the race by yourself, or do you want to run with your leg tied to another person? I mean, you probably don't want to do the latter, but what I'm saying is the idea of that, yeah, autonomy and connection are opposites, and so we're pulled between those. Now, some people in their relationships, they desire a very high level of autonomy. Some people desire that, and for some people, and in some relationships, that works really well. Being autonomous, being on your own, doing sort of more of your own thing, a lot of time alone, that works. My mother talks about the time that she had a friend who, and the woman said that she had a boyfriend she was dating for a long time, and they moved in with each other, and that didn't work. So they actually moved back into separate residences and continued on that way for years until my mother sort of stopped. It was a sort of a weak friendship, didn't really see her after a while anymore. But that was what worked better for them, was actually having less connection, right? So pull between autonomy and connection. And so it may be that you're somebody who likes a lot of connection in your relationship. Again, you're somewhere on the continuum, right? In general, we're talking about romantic relationships here. You have, if you should be interested in having those, and some aren't, that you have that strong desire for connection and being with them, and you want to be with them all the time. And then every once and again, if I could just have a couple of hours to myself, please. Right? And there's some of us, I'm like this, my wife is sort of like this, really. We really like being together and spending time together. We love being in the car together. Like, just like that's our best time. Be on the road, just looking around, chit-chatting. It's awesome. And then, what we also like is having some time to ourselves. We have a high need for connection, want a lot of connection, and then every once and again want autonomy. That's that thing about the moment in the relationship, right? Which that moment can be sort of grand. It can be, a year in the relationship. But I'm talking about moments in relationships can be by the day, right? So some people want connection, 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 and then like, can I now have some time to myself? Like once a day or every couple, 2 or 3 days, a little bit of time to myself, and then back to all that connection again. Because people are pulled between those competing needs, right? There's dialectics, and they're pulled between them. There's a general preference for where they want to be, and then sometimes they want to switch to the other side, and then back again. Okay, so that's an example of both how a dialectic works and also that particular dialectic. Another dialectic in romantic relationships is openness and protection. To be open, to be known, to divulge your secrets and yourself, to be seen figuratively, literally to be seen, and then protection. To hide secrets, hide history, hide your body, right? Those are competing needs. And so in different relationships and at different moments, you may have more need for openness and more needs for protection. Right, and you might cycle through. It may be you're a pretty private person in your relationships, but then every once and again you want to be really vulnerable, and then sort of go back to being pretty protected again. Right, so that would be a dialectic. And then novelty and predictability. So novelty is the new, the unexpected, excuse me, versus the predictable, the same, the known, the humdrum. It's like my wife, for instance, Ivy, does not like surprises. I think surprises are fun. It's a surprise. Who wouldn't like a surprise? Well, for starters, Ivy, right? So some people just don't like a whole lot of novelty. But every once and again, something sort of out of the ordinary, sort of unexpected, can be fun, right? And it could just be things like I was at the store and I picked up that snack food I know you like, that dessert. Like, oh, I didn't know you were gonna do that. Oh yeah, well I knew you liked it, so I got it for you. Right, sort of a novel thing, and there's that, but also the predictability. And a friend was telling me one time about a friend who was a therapist, and so he had all these great relationship examples I was mining from him, right? And he was saying that there's a couple he knew, and that about once or twice a month, the husband would say to the wife, so it was a heterosexual couple, the husband would say to the wife, so pack your bag for the weekend, make sure you have like a nice outfit in there, and we'll leave on Friday. And it was just like, and it was like he would just plan this getaway, and she wouldn't really know until like they were in the car what they were doing. And that was sort of fun, right? But then otherwise, there's a lot of predictability when people are home, when you're expected to be home. It's a very predictable, dependable, reliable routines, very sort of same, and then the sort of wow, And so some people vary in those needs, and some people want a lot of novelty in their relationships. Always something new, we're doing something new and different, and others want a very clear, reliable pattern that feels very safe. We have another set of relational dialectics, and these are those that we find more often or the dialects we identify as being part of friendships as opposed to romantic relationships. So look at friendship dialectics, right? One is judgment and acceptance. By the way, judgment, there's one of my favorite memes, come from The Simpsons, and I guess it's a meme, and it's Marge, who's the mother, talking to Homer, the father, right, her husband, saying, Homer, it's not nice to judge, he said, and it's fun too, right? So judgment and acceptance, that in our friendships, we have a balance between, right, that friendships are about accepting each other, about accepting them. And then friendships have a certain amount of judgment to them sometimes, right? Sometimes people can be very judgmental of their friendships, sometimes they're more accepting. Sometimes they're very accepting, like that's what they are, that's who they are. Love them for, you take them as they are. And then periodically, oh gosh, they have got to get over themselves. And it's the same trait, right? So we vary, I sort of say vastly, but we vary in our relationships between these dialectics of judging them and accepting them. So affection and instrumentality. How much is this relationship about having that sort of emotional connection to them, right? However that's done, versus the fact that there is something instrumentally valuable about this relationship. So the friendships that are about, you just like being with them, whether you're expressive or, unfortunately, as we say, instrumental. The words overlap from different concepts. In your relationship, this friendship, whether it's your emotional closeness is more through dialogue or more through doing things, but there's a closeness there, versus this relationship, there's sort of this instrumental part, which is the value of what it can do for you. I'm not saying that you have friendships just because it'll advance you, but you have some friendships. They're probably not very close, but you maintain them in part because whenever you need help with a certain thing, they help you. And so you maintain that friendship, and they do the same with you. It's not like, so you're not using the person necessarily, but there's a more instrumental component to that relationship than just being about the emotional connection that you feel with each other. Public and private. Friendships can be sort of funny that way about how public they are versus how private. Some friendships are the type that they're only ever really had and expressed out in public. And what I mean is, they're the friends that you have that you see at work. We've talked some about the stages of friendship development, but they're the friends, and that friendship is really contained to those public places like to work, versus more private places like hanging out together in a park, going on a drive someplace. That would be more private. And so some friendships pull between being out with you two get together with other people, would be more public, versus when you two get together, it's just the two of you, which would be more private. And there's the ideal and the real. Right? That more so they find from romantic relationships, in friendships, there is this pull between an ideal friend and the real friend. Right? We have wonderful songs about friends. Of course, there's the theme song to Friends, I suppose, but there's Dionne Warwick singing, "That's what friends are for." There's the old song, "Friendship, Friendship, just a perfect little friendship." Right? We have these ideals. Michael W. Smith, "Friends are friends forever." Right? We have, that song dates me just a little bit, these ideals about what friendship is. And sometimes, friendships are really close, you're connected with them, and sometimes it's like, yeah, it's cool to hang out with them some, but it's just, there's this pull between what really happens sometimes in relationships and what we're hoping we're gonna get from them, what is that ideal. Okay, that rounds out the series of lectures on interpersonal relationships. In addition to what the book has, we've talked about family, we've talked about romance, we've talked about attachment styles, and we've talked about friendship. I hope you found this all beneficial, and our next chapter is going to be on conflict, which will finish up the unit, our portion talking specifically about interpersonal relationships.